I was ready to work for the scruff on my neck, yearning to find something of my own to protect.
Okay, well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Monday, October 17, 2016 City Council meeting. At this time, I will call the meeting to order, and we will do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry, I jumped the
I
gun on
think
you.
you're the president. You just take over.
I jumped the gun on you. Just trying a good timing.
Okay, Shelley, if you'll do
Penalty.
roll call for us. I almost threw a flag on that one. All right.
Albertson,
Here.
Bueller,
Here.
Danforth absent, Manty, Riefenberger,
Here.
Roby,
Here.
Solom,
Here.
Thorson. Thorson. The other Thorson. Tupper.
Here.
Vilhauer.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks, Shelley. Number one, approval of the consent agenda. I will look for a motion, a second for discussion. Motion by Bruce, second by Glenn. Any questions, any changes? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number two, approval of the agenda. I will look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Randy, second by John. Any questions, any changes? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number three, application for a transfer of ownership and location of a retail on-sale liquor license from Valley Heights Lincoln LLC, care of Great Western Banks, at 101 North Phillips Avenue, Sioux Falls, to BMG Inc., doing business as Ringo's, at 520 10th Street Northwest. At this time, I will open the public hearing. If there's anybody that wants to speak in favor of or against this, this is your opportunity. Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Beth, second by Bruce. Any questions?
What, can we just get an explanation why it's going to the bank?
No, it's actually coming from the bank. The bank had owned this, and it was a sale. Yeah, it was purchased from the bank in an auction facility about a couple weeks ago or so. So it's not going to the bank.
This address isn't a business, that must just be the owner's address or something?
No, this is Ringo's out by the zoo at 520 10th Street Northwest. Yep, they'll be using the license out
Right.
there.
And the license was transferred to, I think, kind of, I don't know if it's a holding company of the bank, but this was the old Drake license
Okay.
that got taken back by the bank, and then it got transferred to this location, but they didn't inactivate it, they just kept it active and then sold it.
Don't they have a license there already?
At Ringo's, if they do, it's a malt beverage, it's not a liquor license.
Yeah, that's all I have is malt beverage.
Any other questions? They're all good. Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 4, 2016 Street Improvement Projects Assessment Roll, Resolution Number 16-34. This time I will open the public hearing if there's anybody who wants to speak in favor of or against this. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. I will look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Bruce. Second by Dan. I think you're all sent out a copy of this to go into your packet. I know that it was missing at this time. So I'll turn this over to Shane if you want to take a look at it.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The drawing that we added to the packet at the last minute is this drawing that's up on the screen currently. The area shaded in red is the 1601-D, and the area in blue is 1601-E. So essentially, they were let under one contract. We did receive very favorable bids throughout the project, and we also included storm sewer down the length of 12th Avenue Southeast, commencing at the west end of really essentially right where the red lines are, and extended it all the way to 17th Street Southeast so that we can expand the storm sewer collection in this vicinity. And the only reason I bring that out is we did include that in this project, but we paid for that under a different budget item. So the storm sewer work that was done is not included in the assessments. So we did that with our annual stormwater budget, and is not inclusive of that in these assessments. So with that said, I will say that the east-west road here, 12th Avenue Southeast, comparing the preliminary assessments that we had prepared and the actual assessments at the end, they did go down by an average cost of 10%. And the blue area here on 15th Street, those assessments, the average deduction in pre versus post assessment costs is negative 22%. So both projects went down throughout the course of bidding and completing the work. So with that, I guess, unless there's any individual questions, I'd
Well, one of the
leave it at
things I
that.
want to be clear about is, if you recall, and I'm not sure the date, but the folks were in here at the time when we talked about the assessments, and the council voted to go ahead and do that at the time to proceed with the process. And
Right.
I also want to be clear that these are going against the property that would be collected by the county over a period of X amount of years. Am I correct?
Correct, through our standard
Exactly.
policy. And I do want to point out that at the time of approval to go forward with the assessment procedures, I believe the motion included a reduction in our standard interest rate. Our standard interest rate for our assessment procedure has been 10%. This project was approved setting the interest rate at 4%.
Perfect. So has anybody got any questions for Shane? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks for Shane for getting that done. Number 5, ordinance number 1620, amending sections 21.0210, 21.7310, 21.8006, and 21.9901 of the revised ordinance of the City of Watertown to clarify punishments for violations of Title 21. This is a second reading, and at this particular time, I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion.
So moved.
Motion by Glenn, second by Beth, I'm sorry. Justin, if you want to take this on.
Certainly, Mayor. Just to be brief, you will recall that this measure is purely a housekeeping measure to ensure that, the public-facing document, our revised ordinances, provide for one comprehensive punishment chapter at the end of Title 21. And so if you have any questions, please let me know.
Justin, the only question I've got is it, there's a date on this first page, a couple dates that refers to 10/3/16. Will that be changed to today's date?
Yes, I will make that change. That would be considered a scrivener's change. Shelley and I will get together and make that change per our revised ordinances.
He's not kidding either when he brings stuff to me. It's kind of scribbler thing, No, I'm just kidding you, Justin. Oh, I get it.
Use a pen or a crayon?
Yeah, there you go. Any other comments, any questions for Justin on this? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 6, approval of the 2016 update to the long-term equipment replacement schedule and capital projects plan. Shelley, if you want to give us a little information, and then I'll look for a motion in a second.
I can. There were no changes from the documents that you guys had originally received during the public hearing meeting, so I didn't attach. It's kind of a big file, so it slows down your downloadability. It's on our website, available to anyone. So, and then I also did email you that same document this afternoon, just in case you had any questions. But there were no changes made during those public hearing meetings, and so I'm asking that that gets approved as it was presented and as it was discussed during those meetings.
Perfect. So at this time, I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Don, second by Randy. Any questions you have for Shelley? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 7, capital outlay accumulations for 2017, resolution number 1635. Shelley, if you want to do that again.
Sure. This is just kind of basically a formality to complete the process. This allows the finance office to set funds aside for future capital projects, and it's based on that long-term plan. It has been reflected in the ordinance that you guys adopted at the end of September. And this, again, is just kind of a formality for the auditor to show that you did authorize those monies to be set aside for future capital projects, so.
Perfect. So I will look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Dan. Second by Beth. Any questions for Shelley? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 8, resolution authorizing the election of members of Watertown-Cottington County Regional Railroad Authority, resolution number 1636. At this time, I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion, then we'll let Justin take over. Motion by, who was it down there? Bill. Second by Mr. Bueller. Any questions on that? Well, I'm sorry, we'll turn it over to Justin.
Thank you, Mayor. Back in June of 2002, the city joined with the county to create this railroad authority, and the authority has, per its statutory powers, the ability to own railroads as well as to maintain, operate, and to obtain funds through the governing bodies that constitute it, i.e. the county commission as well as the city council, taxing funds, taxing levies through property. Our Railroad Commission has been very dormant, or relatively dormant, not taking on a lot of activities, but nevertheless, per the agreement, Article 6, every time a commissioner leaves, another commissioner has to be appointed. In this case, my predecessor left, and so this resolution would appoint Shelley and myself as 2 members, the 2 members that the city gets to appoint to a 5-member railroad board. The other 2 are provided or appointed by the county, and then there's a 5th at-large who is Jim Sire with Glacial Lakes Energy.
Any questions that we have for Justin on this? This board, as Justin said, it's just hardly ever met. I think we did meet at one particular time for the Glacial Lakes Energy out there. So it's been the first time in many, many years. So if there's no other questions, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 9, plat of Watertown Sports Complex, first addition to the Municipality of Watertown Resolution Number 1614. I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Beth, second by Bruce. Okay, Shane, if you want to show us what you got over there.
All right, our plat was prepared by Helms and Associates, and it's a portion of the project that was in conjunction with the development of the fiveplex softball complex, which is located in the lower part in Lot 1, Block 2, and also reserving space for the future potential ice arena, which would be located in Block 1, Lot 1. Just to give you a little better idea of where that's located. It's located in the southeast portion of town along 17th Street Southeast and below 14th Avenue Southeast. It did create 2 additional blocks of street, the extension of 14th Street Southeast and the creation of 17th Avenue Southeast going east and west. So with that, any questions, I'm glad to answer.
Any questions for Shane on that? I would like to just comment by using this. I think, Randy, I sent you a note the other day. There's about a $1.4 million savings for the city by using our own properties, which I think is a huge, huge thing for us. So if not hearing any more, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 10, resolution establishing a standing council policy to authorize the mayor to enter into and execute contracts for municipal hangar leases pursuant to SDCL 91-5, resolution number 1637. I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Bruce, second by Bill. And then, Justin, if you want to take that for me.
Certainly, Mayor. This resolution is in keeping with SDCL 9-1-5. Now, that statute provides that contracts with the municipality are to be authorized to go through the city council. But that statute also allows for the city council to delegate that authority to enter into a certain type of contract via either ordinance or resolution to an individual within city government. So the reason why this particular hangar lease issue came up is because of the unique nature of this type of lease. It is one of the few, if not the only, leases that we have in city government that go month to month because of the very fluid nature. And I make reference to that nature in the preambulatory clauses on the resolution here. But suffice it to say, because of that particular nature of the lease being month to month, folks coming in, folks coming out, in order to respond effectively with those narrow time frames, Todd Syrie with the airport suggested it might be a good idea to get that special authority to the mayor, only for those very particular type of leases, hangar leases. So I see Todd's back there. If you have any questions substantively, I'm sure he's happy to answer any.
Any questions, guys?
Just a couple. How much are those things renting for again? It's not a tremendous amount of money, is it?
I've never seen him quite move that fast, Don. He's a cobra.
We have hangars from $150 a month all the way up to $250 a month.
Yeah, I have no issue with it, but just a question, 20 years from now, the mayor at the time has his own plane and gets a great deal on a lease. All right, so I realize we're talking small dollars, just in the idea of transparency. Any issues with that?
Certainly, that's a very fair question that you, or possibility you propose, Councilman. Within our home rule charter, we have a blanket provision regarding conflicts of interest. And so that mayor would have to be beholden to that conflict of interest provision, as would every member of this board, as well as every officer in state government employee, or in city government employee, et cetera.
Good question. Any other questions?
Todd, did you say that we are competitive with, we've had this conversation before, that our rates are competitive now with other airports of our size or bigger?
Yes, we are very competitive. And it's actually a little over $70,000 a year is what I get from hangar rent.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks. Number 11, renewal of the flexible benefits plan and administrative agreement with Wellmark. At this time, I'll look for a motion, a second for discussion. A motion by Bruce. Second by Beth. And Shelley, if you want to just touch on that for us.
Yep, this is something that we do each year. We approve the third-party administrator to our flexible benefits plan for our health and daycare. And there were no changes to the plan, no changes in the administrative fee or the monthly amount. The only variable is the number of participants, because it's per participant. We've been very consistent with the 65 to 68 per year, so we usually budget about 69. So if you have any specific questions, I can sure answer them.
Any questions for Shelley on this? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 12, authorization for the finance officer to sign a consulting services agreement with Holt Benefits Consulting for ADA compliance and measurement in the amount of $7,500. This time I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Don.
Second.
Second by Glenn. And then Shelley, if you'll touch on this for us.
Sure. Audra, who is our HR coordinator, and I were working on the compliance aspect of the Affordable Care Act for all of our part-time variable hour employees, which is pretty close to 450 of them. Both of us soon learned that with the complexity of the laws and how many different situations we have, that we just did not have the time or the expertise to find the policies that we needed, the procedures that we needed to put in place, the education piece that we needed to put in, and then the tracking mechanisms. And so once we determined that we needed some additional help, we kind of looked at our time frame and it was narrow. And so we did some research and we contacted Howalt McDowell. They do have a very large staff. They do have one particular gal, Abby, who we're working with, who is their ACA expert. She spent 3 years doing nothing but helping companies like us get ACA compliant. And we've asked that this be done prior to the end of the year so that we know in open enrollment that we are in compliant and that we have things set up to start the 2017 year. So we're kind of running on a little bit of a short time frame. But what this is going to do is they will help us create policy and procedures. They're going to help us put a tracking mechanism in place for both new employees, which have a different tracking time frame, and the current ones. Then we're also going to do an education piece, an implementation piece to our department heads and anyone who tracks, manages, deals with these various part-time employees. So, we were grateful that with most insurance companies are dealing with renewals right now, and so they're really pressed for time. So I appreciate their time and their expertise. Without this, the city does have a large potential liability that gets opened up for not doing this, not tracking this, not being in compliance, not showing that we're doing our due diligence to make sure that 95% of our population that works an average of 30 hours or more is getting offered insurance. And so we need to make sure that we're doing our due diligence on that and putting what we need to in place. And so that's what this contract will
I'd
do.
like to also add that I do believe the council here will be seeing something coming forward within the next quarter that they can have something to eat on and take a look at, and there's just going to be some changes happening here for us.
Shelley, I have one question. It's about an 87-day contract. Your termination clause is 90, so you really can't terminate it. Do you need a reason to terminate it for something short, maybe a 30-day or anything like that?
No, and I think that's probably just standard language that came in their, I asked them for something in writing contractually that they would do for the money that they were asking, and they just kind of gave us some standard contract language, and I'm guessing that's where that came in. They'd given it to us, I think, in September, and now we're coming to this point where we're going to ask for improvement.
Would it be worth just saying we want a 30-day termination? You're going to need it?
We sure can. Yep.
Shelley, first of all, a clarification, because our agenda refers, this is the ADA compliant, it's ACA.
ACA,
Yeah.
yep, just a typo.
Do you anticipate needing to utilize this service in the future?
Nope, this is a one-time. Once we get
Okay.
all of our tracking mechanisms, we get our spreadsheet set up, we kind of get the rules to the game, then we just keep going forward.
Just a comment, in our profession, we have seen, I wholeheartedly support going through this. We kind of refer to the ACA in our business as the law of unintended consequences. It is hurting so many parties that it's intended to help, and it is a terrible piece of legislation, in my opinion.
Yep. And that's where the mayor was talking about in the future we're going to maybe see some change, because I think this is probably just the first of many changes, and I think we just need some ongoing support with that, and I think we'll kind of do that through whoever kind of our enrolled agent is through insurance, and that's the process that we're kind of going to look at so that we get this ongoing help, that we don't have to keep contracting out for services.
Any other questions? This actually, folks, is a good move on the city's part with Shelley and Audra working on this tightly. Okay, any other questions then? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 13, consideration of additional airport staffing. This is for one additional person at this particular time, unless our airport just starts going crazy. But what I would like to do, I think you've all had a chance to look at this. I fully support one person. I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion, and we'll bring Todd into the picture. Motion by Randy, second by Bruce. Todd, Todd, if you want to step up and give us an idea what's going on.
Sure. Jet service has been going very well at the airport. Been very receptive in the community. As we see our numbers just keep skyrocketing weekly is what it's going up. But just to give you a little background on the current rules and regulations, obviously the federal government doesn't follow our calendar. They're a federal fiscal year, so they start October 1. Hence, I'm here today and not back in July asking for this, so I apologize. But our current jet is, it puts us into an Index B category instead of an Index A for ARF, Airport Fire Rescue. So what that means is we have to mandatory have 2 staff on duty anytime we have that jet on the ground for ARF. So how we've alleviated that issue currently is the fire department's supplying 1 person, and my staff got certified along with myself to cover the lapse in any times we have currently, even overnights. We've been taking that on as well. So another thing they put into effect is the RCAM system. It's a runway condition assessment matrix. This went into effect October 1st through the FAA. They're coming out with a lot of new advisory circulars lately. It seems like the last year we've had about 3 of them that have hit pretty hard with smaller airports of our size. You know, they never tell you how much staffing you need. They just tell you how much job duties you have, and then it's up to the cities to man them in case of any accidents or anything. They'll come back and look at all of our paperwork, of course. The growth at the airport is just tremendous. I've been fortunate enough to see the last 3 years and how general aviation has just exploded. We went from 26 based aircraft 3 years ago to 54 based aircraft, a few jets, and a helicopter. So I was just on the phone the other day with Prairie Lakes, and for the next 20 months, we're going to have all of the helicopters coming in for transfers, landing at the airport. So that will add additional work hours for myself and my staff, but we're happy to take it on. So as far as the other revenue sources that we have, commercial fuel sales, we're doing, just in the jet, we're doing 1,200 gallons a day at 4 cents a gallon. That's not including any of the private jets coming in, not including any of the 100 low lead smaller aircraft. They're all at 4 cents a gallon as well. So we've been seeing a real big uptick on that number. We're actually ordering glycol for the airlines currently, and we're charging them $2 a gallon for every 270 gallon tote. We charge them $2 per gallon for that, above and beyond our cost. The airline is actually buying diesel and unleaded fuel due to the fact that it's pretty unsafe for them to drive their tug and their carts and such down the road to the gas station to get fuel, go across the highway, and then come back. So we've set up an agreement with them that they could buy fuel from us at a cost. We have, in the past, we've had charter opportunities, and we've taken advantage of those. That's something that the mayor and I have been looking at very diligently, and I think we're getting close to something of that nature arising again for a revenue source. And also, last thing I can add is all the leases we redid this spring, and we added a 2% increase clause to all of the leases. I have upwards of 50 leases at the airport.
Any questions for Todd?
Todd, what first part you said you needed help for, what was it called?
The RCAM system.
I think you had one before that. Something to do with fire response.
Yeah, ARF.
So, yeah,
Yep.
okay. So in other words, if you don't supply the extra help for that, it'd probably fall on Doug's shoulders with the fire department?
Yep.
Good.
And I would add that the fire department and the airport have been working extremely close together, you know.
Yeah, we've had a great working relationship. It's been a lot better than it has been in past years.
Okay. I'm not going there, you guys. I'm staying out of this one. Are there any other questions for Todd on this one additional staff? Hearing none, I will look for.
Just a housekeeping, will this require a budget amendment then, or, I mean, is that a part of it as well, or?
At this time, no. Because I work on a flexible budget, because he's an enterprise fund, we wouldn't have to. We will need to, like I had mentioned in there, that $22,000 that would be needed whether we did nothing or added staff, that'll have to be addressed, because that's outside of the 2017 budget number, so.
So
Okay.
Todd, this will take care of the overtime then? You don't think you'll need overtime?
That is incorrect. We will still need overtime.
Yeah, there are
The
always some.
thing to add to fully staff the airport, we'd need to go to 24-hour-a-day, 7-day coverage, and that actually takes 4 full-time staff members to do that. 2 on days, 2 on nights, and they rotate 2 on, 3 off, 3 on, 2 off, and we'd be fully staffed at that point. But
Okay.
right now, we're just asking for 1. So.
Yep. Okay, any other questions? Hearing none, I will look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.
Number 14, authorization for the mayor to sign an agreement with Prairie Lakes Healthcare for temporary ambulance transport services to the airport. This time I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion.
Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Don. Yep, by Don. And Chief, you're up on this. I know that Todd did touch just a little bit on this for you, but you fill us in what's going on.
So Prairie Lakes is going under a renovation for roughly about 20 months, and it will take down the helipad that's right outside of the hospital right now. So we will have to use the airport facility for that helipad, and we'll be transporting the flight teams back and forth from the airport with the patients, very similar to what we do for a current fixed wing. And so we do that service to the hospital for also the helicopters for somewhere up to 20 months. And so what we did is we came up with a contract that would supply that service to the hospital for a flat rate fee. That we provide that service as long as they need it by the contract standards. Roughly looking at anywhere from 10 to 20 flights a month on average. So that's what this contract basically covers.
What percentage of the ones, I mean, maybe you don't know because the other ones are helipad and they land right there, but how many are you doing fixed wing now?
That's a good question. I don't have that number
Okay.
right off the top of my head.
You probably see more fixed wing than helicopter after that takes place anyhow, so.
You know, that's from what my understanding, that's kind of determined by the hospital that is supplying the flight team. Depends on the illness, the reason for transport, whether they're bringing a helicopter or a fixed wing, and depends on how busy they are and how far they have to travel.
Doug, a couple questions. It's probably clear, but I just want to make sure I understand it. This is between us and Prairie Lakes. In other words, we're not getting involved in any kind of insurance or Medicare or anything of issues of that nature for whatever services we're providing. This is strictly between us and the hospital.
Yes, that's
Okay.
that's correct. Normally, it's a patient fee between us and the patient, and with the helicopter pad out,
Okay.
Prairie Lakes is taking on this contract.
And then also the rate, I'm guessing, is comparable to what we would charge for a normal service of that nature?
Yeah, it lands somewhere between Medicare rates and a full service rate, and we included the 3 miles to the airport for loaded miles and everything. Kind of come up with a average figure that would work for both sides.
Chief, one question. Infrastructure-wise, do we have to invest any money in infrastructure on this?
No. Other than we would have some additional time, we'd have some overtime and things like that, and some additional things like that. So
I think in the very initial, I think, Todd, you're going to be putting some things together out the airport so they know where the landing pad's going to be and to get things squared away on that. I'm not mistaken. But once that's done, it's done, and then we should be taken care of.
I think a lot of that's pretty close to in place, and they're basically ready to start the service. So
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, they're having a groundbreaking here just shortly, are they not?
yeah, I think today they closed the helipad.
Perfect.
So
Any other questions for the chief? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, chief. Number 15, authorization for the mayor to sign a long-term lease agreement with Glacial Lakes Energy regarding municipal property adjacent to the GLE property for purposes of a rail loop track. At this time, I will look for a motion and a second for discussion, and then we'll turn it over to Justin. Motion by Bruce, second by Glenn. Justin, if you want to take that.
Certainly, Mayor. GLE, and we have Paul here, Paul Calkins from GLE, who might be able to answer any of your more substantive questions. But in terms of the lease document here, GLE came to the city in regards to its rail loop expansion project and asked for a certain swath of territory of municipal property, and asked initially if they could obtain an easement from the city, where the city would give over access to that land in an easement form to GLE. In looking at the relevant statutes, we came to find that the city's ability to give over land is relatively limited directly to private parties. And easements as far as we could see, were not envisioned as in a city being able to give an easement over to a purely private entity. So instead, we hit on the idea of a long-term lease, this being a 99-year lease, because statute clearly provides authority for a municipality to enter into leases with private entities. So that gives you the legal background on why this is a long-term lease, a 99-year lease, and not an easement. The reason for the long duration is the nature of the investment that GLE is making in this property. As rail, a rail loop, it's a very capital-intensive investment, a long-term investment, and so that is where this lease agreement stands. Again, a term of 99 years, nominal consideration, $1 per year, and indemnification protecting the city. So I think the description of what we're talking about in terms of property, we have it there on Exhibit A in the document language, but what we're essentially talking about on the map here is that strip that Shane is denoting with the hand pointer. So we're talking a relatively small portion of property. But again, Paul might be able to provide you greater information on why that parcel is particularly important to their operation.
I do have a quick question for you, because I know that there's a lot of kids that will go down on that side and go fishing. This isn't going to stop them from going over there, is that correct?
That's correct, Mayor. The ability to utilize that property, if you look at, there still is a good deal of distance on that Exhibit A between the channel and this property. If you actually go out there to take a look at where the stakes are in that GLE put in, you'll see that there's, what would you say, Paul, in terms of distance between the stakes? 60 feet.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions for Justin on this? Hearing none, I'll move forward here. Hearing none, then look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 16, authorization for the mayor to sign an easement agreement with Glacial Lakes Energy regarding municipal property adjacent to the GLE property. This time I'll look for a motion and a second for discussion, and we'll turn it over to Shane. Motion by Randy, second by Beth. Shane?
Okay, thank you. This is very closely related to the previous action you just took. And essentially, the city, but prior to GLE owning the property that the rail loop project is on, of course, was a Hanton Farm. And the city had a lease with the Hanton Farm prior to GLE's purchase of the land. And it was to access this little building here, which regulates the water outflow from Pelican Lake. So what the easement did was it accessed South Broadway Street through a gate right here next to the river. It followed this berm that was constructed alongside the river and would end at the location of where the city's property commences then. So what we've done is the previous easement was only on the dike itself, and because this is a improved stretch of river, in other words, it is all riprap banked stretch of the river, and we have multiple stormwater outfalls along the north side of the river here from Highway 212 into the river. So we included the entire area from the top of this berm over to the Highway 212 right-of-way and the adjoining property boundaries over here, so that we could go in, repair riprap, we could take debris out of the river, et cetera. So we've really kind of enhanced this easement beyond what we originally had, and we think from an operation and maintenance standpoint, it's going to be a win-win for us and GLE.
Can you explain to me, and maybe I'm confused here, why is one we couldn't have an easement?
Sure.
And on the other one, We can't.
Mayor, I was tempted to jump in right after Shane got done, but I'm glad you answered that or asked that question. So what I was talking about is the city providing an easement to a private entity. In this circumstance, we're talking about a private entity providing an easement to the city, which the city is fully within its rights to accept.
Okay, and that makes sense. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. While we're out there at GLE, can you tell me how the bridge is coming along?
Well, I didn't get out there today. What I understand is that the T columns or sections will be delivered first part of this week. They'll start using the crane to put those in place, and then once those are set, they can put the rails on the sides and pave the pavement surface over the top. So it should be done by the end of the month is what they're expecting. So
Yeah, it's interesting. You go down First Avenue here on the north side and look down Broadway, you can see those cranes out there working away. So very good. Any old business we need to discuss? Hearing none, is there any new business that we need to discuss? Are there any liaison member reports that we need to hear? There is a need to go into executive session. I will look for a motion and a second to go in for personnel reasons at this time, so I'll look for that motion and a second. Motion by Beth, second by Randy. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are in executive session. I don't expect anything to come out of this, so the news, I wouldn't think you'll need to stick around. Thank you.